Hello, my name is Martin and welcome back to another video. Now, what is the connection between this building here behind me and this outlet pipe on the River Irwell in the centre of Manchester? Stay tuned and I'll tell you. But first, allow me to set the scene.
УЗБ-76, УЗБ-76, 93, 882,
Hello, this video is about a network of underground tunnels in Manchester. Constructed in the 1950s at the height of the Cold War, when the Soviet threat of nuclear bombs was at its worst. The tunnels were designed to house telephone exchange equipment. In the event of a direct hit on Manchester, vital communications could be kept open with the telephone exchange equipment being held deep underground. Now, this project in Manchester was not unique. There were other projects in London and in Birmingham, and Manchester's project was called Guardian. Now, the main part of the tunnels and where most of the equipment was held was around the Piccadilly area, but the tunnels extend out to various entrances and exits just outside the city centre. In one direction they go under the Irwell and they go to Salford. In the other direction they go on to Ardwick. So let's just have a quick look at this on our underground map of Manchester. So to the upper right of the picture there, that's Piccadilly. You'll see New York Street and you'll see the complex starts. And as we move down the picture, you can see where my red arrow is there. And that's where the entrance to Guardian is, where I did the opening scenes to this video, which is that strange building on Back George Street. So you can see there the full part of the complex, and just to the right side there you can see Portland Street, that black line, and to the left side is that Fountain Street. So it all, like the main part of the telephone exchange equipment lies under that part of Manchester, just at the back of Piccadilly. Now let me show you this picture. Now if you look at this picture here, you can see where the two red arrows are. There's the tunnels that branch off the main complex. And one part goes down to Ardwick on the lower part of the picture, and the upper part that goes over to Salford and the two Salford shafts, which we'll be looking at in a bit. Now during this video we're going to see if we can find some of those exit and entrance points that are located just outside the city centre. Now the construction started in 1953 and it was finally completed in 1958. Now the tunnels were between 100 and 150 feet deep. There's various figures banded about, but nonetheless they went down into the rock underneath Manchester, far below the foundations of any of the buildings up above. One of the biggest problems that they had when they were digging the tunnels was water ingress, because they were right down near the water table. Now this problem with water, that gives us our connection to that outlet pipe on the River Irwell. That building you see there is Dial House, and it's a big telephone exchange just across the river in Salford. And the outlet pipe that you see there, that is the water that's pumped out of the Guardian tunnels, and it's fed by great big pumps underneath Dial House. And it's been running for years and years and years. In fact, it's been running so long, and there's so much silt from the rock that the water's comes from, that when it hits the Irwell there, over years and years and years, it's formed a mini sandbank in the Irwell. So yeah, for what looks like an innocuous little bit of an outlet pipe, is actually the pumps pumping water out of Guardian. If you just go back into the centre near Piccadilly at the main complex, you'll see there it says artesian well. Well, an artesian well is basically you get water that goes so deep in the rocks that you get pockets of it, and the pressure of the rock pushes down on it and forces it upwards. And that's what they've had to deal with at the back of Piccadilly, is so deep underground. They've had to harness that water flow
and I know for a fact that from the artesian well it gets pumped out into the sewage system. So where the other pumps pump it out into the Irwell at the back of Piccadilly, in that complex there, it pumps it out into the sewage system.
The tunnels were basically like a horseshoe shape. Some of them were smaller, some of them were larger. The larger tunnels had 2 levels inside them. In the centre of Manchester was the main workings of Guardian, and that's where it had an engine room, battery rooms, telephone exchange equipment. Now, contrary to popular belief as well, or what some people thought, that it was a bunker for the elite in Manchester, for the councillors, for the mayor and anyone that was important in Manchester. This wasn't the case. It was purely for telephone exchange equipment, and it was designed to house, I think, up to 35 telephone exchange engineers to keep communications going. This was the purpose of Guardian, to keep communications going at all costs. Okay, so we're in the car. Let's have a drive out into town, or just beyond town, and see if we can see these entrance shafts that are located in Salford and in Ardwick.
Okay, so on to Salford. You'll see along Chapel Street there's 2 shafts. Let's take the one on the left first of all.
So I'm just off Chapel Street in Salford, and you would never know this thing was here. This is the Salford end of the shaft, and you would just drive past this or walk past it, and look how fortified it is. No chance of getting in there.
Okay, so let's go down to the other side of Chapel Street now, and you'll see where the blue circle is there. That's where I did the opening scenes for this video, where I stood opposite the pump outlet. That's where I was stood. You'll see the red arrow pointing to the pump, and you'll see also there it says Dial House Shaft. So let's see if we can find the entrance to that shaft there.
To my left is Dial House, where one of the tunnels comes to. I'm looking round and I can't see the entrance or exit point to one of the tunnels, apart from something over here that I'm just going to go and have a quick look at. So I think it's this thing behind me here. Although if you consider the amount of security there was around the other Salford shaft, quite exposed really.
And onwards we must go. Let's go and take a look at the other side of town and the Ardwick shaft. You can see it's just by the Mancunian Way. Let's go and investigate.
So I'm just near the Ardwick shaft, and again you wouldn't know it was here. I'm right by the Mancunian Way, and it's sort of in the grounds of a substation. You can see this here. Again, you wouldn't know what it was if you walk past it. It just looks like it's part of the substation. Bit more difficult to spot this one.
And there you go, there's the Ardwick shaft. And you'll see that they're all in the same sort of style, a small brick building with the steel louvers on the side, the steel ventilation louvers on the side. And whenever you go near them you can hear like fans running like an air conditioning system.
And we're back home. Now, believe it or not, I started filming this project a while ago, a couple of months ago, back in summer. I abandoned it and then I got back onto it. Now, when I started filming it, on George Street, there's a building called Rutherford House, and it was a British Telecoms, it was a post office building, and it was built after Guardian, and one of the shafts came up eventually inside Rutherford House, and there was right down on the floor on the left hand side was some clues to the shaft. I don't know whether it was some sort of like air conditioning system or some sort of blower for the shafts. It's gone now, you can't see it anymore, but if you look at this clip as we walk across the street, you can see down below it says, I think it says risers for Guardian or something, and you'll see that they've been scrubbed out. Now, this was a picture I found of the original signs that were there. If you go there now, it's just been painted over and there's no signs of the evidence of a shaft to Guardian there anymore. Now, one of the urban myths about Guardian was that it was built up by all Polish workers, and the reason they employed Polish workers was because they would go away at the end of the day and they wouldn't talk about the project. Apparently that's not true. If you read Keith Warrender's book called Below Manchester, I've got it down here, he says that it was a mixture of Irish navvies, English workers and Polish workers. People over the years have also complained that it was that, you know, that all that money was spent on it. It was paid for by the taxes and the rates of the people of Manchester. Well, apparently it was funded by NATO. So finally, Guardian opened for service on the 7th of December 1958, but unfortunately by the time it opened, nuclear bomb technology had developed enough that the new nuclear bombs could now penetrate the tunnels, and so Guardian was no longer resistant to a nuclear attack. That's quite ironic, isn't it? And you could argue that Guardian was a white elephant, but I would say it wasn't a white elephant.
Now, just while we're on the subject of fortification and bomb-proof stuff, this is the entrance to Guardian, the main entrance to Guardian. You'll see, again, it looks like a substation, electricity substation really, but you'll see the tall chimney type thing, that's a ventilator shaft, and you'll see it's still quite well fortified with the barbed wire. And that BT cabinet there, I stood on that to get this shot of inside the yard, and you see the roller shutter there. Well, apparently there's a great big steel door behind that. I don't know if it is still there, but there's a great big, seriously thick steel door behind that, obviously to stop people getting in and to stop bombs, I suppose, as well, if you like. So any urban explorers trying to get in there, I think the police won't take kindly to it because of the fire in 2004 and the current terrorist threats in Manchester. So not advisable to try and get in, just saying.
As we go along the timeline, in 1983 there was still a lot of speculation about Guardian. People were talking about it, thought there was nuclear fallout suits in there, wondering what it was all about still. And a reporter from the Manchester Evening News got in, and I don't know how he got in, whether he was invited in or whether he was broke in, I don't know what happened, but he basically got in there and produced a report for the Manchester Evening News in 1983, and he just basically said, he dispelled a lot of myths, and he just said it's a working telephone exchange, it's in a nuclear bunker, but it's a telephone exchange and no more. And he said there's just basically a canteen down there, there's food down there, there is a pool table, people work down there, and there's even a fish tank down there and an aquarium. 2004 there was a big fire in the tunnels, some of us could probably still remember that, and that knocked out telecommunications in Manchester for days, even weeks afterwards. One of the interesting stories that one of the old BT engineers tells is that when they was flicking over from the old analog equipment that was actually moving, the exchange actually moved, things clicked and buttons whirred and things went round, over to the digital equipment, the analog equipment was used less and less and less. And some of the last phone calls that came through, you could see them come into the analog equipment and the switchgear handling the call, and you could see it go through the exchange before it sent the call on its way across the city. So that would have been quite interesting to see, wouldn't it? Anyway, what's to become of Guardian? Who knows? Personally, I'd like to see it kept as a time capsule so that people could go down there and visit. There is a video on YouTube that you can find, and it's someone that got in there. I don't know if they was invited in or a BT worker took them down there. There's no commentary, it's just two guides walking around the complex, and you get a really good insight into what it's like down there. If I can find the link, I'll put it in the description down below. So where have I got the information from for this video? Well, basically it's out there, it's all over the internet. The pictures are originally from a BT website, so we need to credit them. Or however, if you do a Google search, you'll find the pictures all over the internet from various sources. I have used Keith Warrender's book. That's a great book if you want to read more about it. It's called Below Manchester. But again, there's multiple websites, there's loads of information out there, so there's no one particular source I've used. Read Keith Warrender's book, it's great, you can read more about it, and plus there's some great websites out there. Anyway, if you like the video, thank you for watching. Please give it a thumbs up, and if you consider subscribing to my channel, that'll support me and motivate me to do more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I shall see you very soon in the next video. Take care.